bit about yourself and the leadership roles that you hold, and how did you get into leadership, or how did you become into leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a pastor Connection Church in Oklahoma City. So I've been pastor for 12 years. So it's a church that has it started with young people, and it's kind of evolved from that point. And we've had opportunity to travel around the world, really training leaders and being a part of leaders' lives, even on a global scale. One of my passions has been always raising up leaders, empowering leaders. And so that's kind of still where I am. I've also owned businesses. So I've owned martial arts schools. I'm a martial artist. I've owned martial arts schools, I think 3 or 4. I've owned nutrition stores and been a part of that type of industry. And at this point, I am the founder of Go Next Global, which is a leadership organization, leadership training organization that helps leaders shift from where they are, which I say from your now, which is where you are, where you're stuck, to your next. That's really making your vision become visible. So I work with corporations as well as ministries in that aspect. So that's as far as my leadership position. That's who I am. I got into this concept of leadership is really through my own journey, my own struggle in life, being stuck with not really knowing who I was. My senior year of high school, that's that year, your senior year, that's that year that, you have this extreme excitement and extreme anxiety all at the same time.
Right.
Excited because you're about to graduate and be on your own, and you have the anxiety because you're about to graduate and be on your own. So I remember the week before graduation, we're supposed to march. I'm going to get all my stuff, my regalia, all my graduation materials. And I remember walking up to the desk, and the lady says, a lady's looking on the paper. She says, your name is not on the list. And I'm like, what do you mean my name is not on the list? She said, yeah, your name is not on the list. You may want to go talk to the counselor. So I remember running in the counselor's office, knocking on the door. He opens the door. He says, come to my desk. And I got close to his desk, and he said, what's wrong? I said, they said my name's not on the list. They made some type of mistake. And he folded up this paper and pushed it to the side. And he looked up at me and said, yeah, you're not graduating.
Wow.
It's a week before graduation. And so much of my adult life, I was really stuck at that desk, feeling like a failure, feeling shame, feeling guilt, feeling like low self-esteem. I didn't have anything to offer the world. But it was one day I was sitting watching television, and a preacher came on by the name of Dr. Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe came on, the first time I had ever heard him. And he began to say some of the most profound things. And he said, start talking about purpose. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. But he made one statement about purpose that was the game changer for me. He said this, the greatest tragedy of life is not death. The greatest tragedy of life is life without purpose. So right then, that's when I realized that my issue wasn't that I didn't graduate. It wasn't that I had made some mistakes growing up. My issue was that I didn't know my purpose. And so I got on this irrationally passionate pursuit for purpose. So I started looking for, why do I exist? Why am I here? What is the reason? Where am I going in life? And when I began to discover that, I discovered that really my purpose was to empower other people and to help them discover their purpose and help them become the leaders and use all the gifts from martial arts, the gifts from ministry, the gifts that God has given me to help other people discover their purpose. So that's my journey. That's how I got to the place that I'm in.
Amen. I know for me personally, you came into my life at a pivotal moment where I was in a similar place. I was coming off of the street, really didn't know my purpose, didn't know who I was really, and was really using my God-given potential and gifts in perverse ways. And then you came into my life and kind of helped me get unstuck, if you will, and get me to another place. And that just brings me to another question that I had on the list, and I'll go ahead and say it now. It's kind of out of order, but I mean, you just said some things that just led the perfect segue into that. You said getting people from where they are now into their next, and then also you mentioned helping people see their leadership potential, and then you mentioned Miles Monroe and how he spoke into your life to pretty much give you a revelation that there is more and there is purpose. So we've been reading a book in my course. It's called Spiritual Leadership by Henry and Richard Blackaby. And his definition of leadership is pretty much spot on with what you said. It's leading people unto God's agenda. And then he goes further and he says, helping people from where they are now and helping them get them to where God wants them to be. And then I know many people that came under your leadership, under your ministry, and I know you're a transitional, I don't know how to say it. Your leadership transcends just the church. As you mentioned, entrepreneurship, businesses, and even a leader in the martial arts field, the whole nine. But can you give us some examples of how you have helped people get, as you say, from their now to their next, and as Blackaby says, from where they are now to where God wants them to be?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that as a leader that you're helping people do is discover their true identity. That's one of the biggest things that you're doing as a leader. I don't care if you are leading an organization, so you're a CEO of an organization. A lot of times people think leadership is just telling people what to do. Right. But the most effective leadership is helping people discover, even from a corporate standpoint, from a ministry standpoint, helping people discover. So one of the things that I have been passionate about is seeing people that are maybe kind of in the state that you said when you came to Greater Kingdom Works at the time. Yeah. And went from where you were to currently where you are now through that transition, through that journey. Seeing people come in and there's this thing that I get people who are that come to me or are attracted to me that are broken, that have gone through life and that are in this place of trying to figure it out. And so I've watched people from our church, I've watched people go from being shy, timid, to now being bold. We have some that have written books. We have some that have launched businesses and clothing lines, and that some are in other places in the country that are doing praise and worship and things on major scales and major levels. And that's because I feel like this, I learned this in martial arts. As a martial artist, my instructor always taught me that he always said to me, he wanted me to be better than him. So I don't want you just to be as good as I am. I want you to train to the point that you become better than me. And I took that when I began to teach martial arts. And so I would teach students from white belt all the way to black belt. And I've watched many of them transcend what I've done as martial artists. Some of them have gone on to world championships and all kinds of stuff. They're UFC fighters. I got people in every aspect that I've been able to touch their lives in their journey. So that's the big thing for me, is seeing people really just transcend even what I was able to download into them, and take that and build on it. And that's, I think, what's the power of leadership.
Yeah. And I remember something you used to say all the time. You said that you desired to see people come into their full expression. And I know you specifically through ministry. When you planted your first church, Greater Kingdom Works at the time, now Connection Church. But you mentioned something very powerful, like, the leadership aspect didn't stop just in the church. You took people from white belt all the way to black belt, and not only that, world champions. And I've seen personally through your leadership, just people coming into a full expression, including myself, including Pastor Marquise. There's so many. What you do well is multiply leaders, and I thank God for your vision. Want to move on to the next question. The next question I had was, and we kind of talked about that, but I'll go to another one. What have been some of the challenges in your journey and currently? What have been some of your leadership challenges currently and throughout your journey? So.
Yeah, I saw this question, and it's such a loaded question of challenges, man. But some of the challenges have been, one of the greatest parts of leadership is people, but one of the greatest challenges of leadership is people. You have to learn how to navigate through the constantly changing or evolution of people. And the thing about it is that when you're leading, you lead every personality. So you don't get one kind of one person. You get multiple types of people, and you have to learn how to strategically deal with everyone at their level. You have to deal with them at their, not only at their level, at their comprehension level. You have to learn to deal with people at their emotional level. You have to learn to deal with people at their level of their pain that they've been through. So they've been through some abuses or some hurts or some things. You have to learn to deal with them at that level. So you have to learn how to navigate through those, because some people you can be more direct with.
Right.
That if you're like that with someone else, then it's a whole nother world. So you got to be quick to catch those things and navigate through those things. So the biggest challenge is always, because you're going to offend, you're going to and not even intentionally, you're going to hurt people, things are going to happen. So knowing how to navigate through that, and those challenges. The other challenge I would say is when you pour into someone and you're hoping that they get it and it doesn't seem like they get it.
Right.
Because then it falls back on me. I feel like, man, what could I have done different? What could I have done better? What is there something that I could have said, or maybe one more time reaching out to this person? And so you that kind of haunts you as a leader. Right. That when I tried, everything I knew to do to get that person here, and it just didn't seem to work. And so those are those times when you really got to lean on God's grace and really pull on his strength to carry you through those things. Because a lot of times those are the moments that you want to throw in a towel and say, maybe I'm not called to this. So those are, I would say, the challenges that I face there, as far as personal, internal challenges even that I had to face as a leader, and constantly face it, to this day. I don't think it ever stops. You got to constantly know how to navigate through that. Yeah.
You touched on a lot, man. I mean, that's half of what we learned in this class so far. We're reading another book called Primal Leadership, and it pretty much talks about the first aspect of leadership is the emotional connection. Either knowing yourself emotionally too, and what triggers you, what your weaknesses are. Not saying that you spend a lot of time trying to better your weaknesses, but at least knowing what they are, and how other people are wired, and how to connect with people, how to capture people, and how to deal with, like you said, offenses. I offended a young lady unknowingly the other day. I guess it was by what I wasn't doing as a leader. So, but you just hit the nail on the head. Then also, are there any current challenges in your leadership? And then I'll speak to the fact that, man, you just kind of just speaking to me right now, like all the ups and downs, especially when you're trying to get something off of the ground, especially when you're trying to start something or pioneer something. There's a lot of ups and downs. A lot of times you're on a mountaintop, but then the next day you may be in the valley, ready to give up, question your call. Am I even called to this? Did I hear God in the first place? So you definitely hit a lot there, and a lot of challenges that I'm facing currently right now as a leader. I told my wife, I said one day we'll look back at this and laugh that we were crazy enough to try to plant a church in the middle of at the start of a pandemic. I mean, one day we'll look back at that and laugh, but right now is not the time. So you spoke to a lot there.
And that's the thing you think about. Leadership is not a landscape, it's a seascape. So a lot of people think leadership is a landscape. The difference is this: landscape is you know everything, pinpoint what's going to happen. If you drive out your neighborhood, you know where everything is going to be. It's a landscape. Okay, that house is going to be there, that stop sign is going to be there, this street, Bryant or Sooner Road or whatever, Anderson Road, is always going to be there. That's landscape. These hills will be there, whatever it is. That's landscape. You can predict it without question. You can predict it. The seascape is different because the sea is unpredictable. This is why it takes a skilled captain or salesman, sailor. So I'm trying to say, the skilled sailor to go into the sea, because it's unpredictable. You may have high waves today and low waves tomorrow. You may have the tide comes in and then it comes. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. The wind blows and your sails are set, and you don't know which direction you're going to go. That's what leadership is. Wow. And that's the difficulty of leadership. It's a seascape, not a landscape. And, you think about, coming into this year, we, as far as Connection Church, I mean, when I say we, Connection Church was coming into probably one of the greatest seasons that we have had in 4 or 5 years, where attendance we were packed to capacity, and it was growing and growing and growing. Things were moving like crazy. And then all of a sudden the wave hit called coronavirus,
right.
called pandemic.
Yeah.
And so we went from one Sunday having record-breaking attendance to the next Sunday having to shut the whole thing down. And now we're trying to figure out who even goes to our church now. where is everybody at? What are people doing? And so having to navigate and make quick adjustments that's what you have to do on a seascape. You got to make quick adjustments. The sailor has to be able to set the sail quickly. Oh, the wind shifted. Oh, I got to set the sail. I got to navigate with a compass, not with a map, with a compass, because something may change on me and the direction may look different. So that's the big challenge of leadership, is navigating through the sea, so,
and that's
big deal.
That's exactly where I'm at right now. It's just the ups and downs, and it's funny that you use the sea to describe it, because I would tell my wife all the time, it's like we're in uncharted territory. And you think about uncharted waters and the unpredictability of the sea and the wind shifting and things like that. But I am learning that even in this season, or not only this season, the seasons that will come, that you do have to be decisive. And like you said, with the compass, keeping your ear to heaven, and then, okay, this is what I feel the Lord telling us. Because if you procrastinate, what I'm learning is if you procrastinate too long as well, you can lose momentum, and you can start to question your purpose and question where everything's going, because you're allowing the sea to take you wherever it wishes to take you, instead of being decisive and headed in a direction. So yeah, I appreciate that that example for sure. So what have been some of the rewards? Rewards, and when I say rewards along the way, and then just rewards, the fruit of your leadership that you would say, in your opinion.
Yeah, seeing people thrive is the biggest reward. When I can look back and look at people's lives from day one to where they are now. Even you looking from where I remember when you first came to a Bible study, to where you are now, great career, great family, doing great things in ministry. And so seeing that is the reward of leadership. When I see people come out of, things that they've been bound by, like they've been addicted to, and habits they've had and things like that, to look now and see their lives and like see them free. It's the greatest reward you can have, to see the people that have, other people that have come into the church or come into the martial arts. I get more excited about seeing my students win than when I won. So that's the reward of it. That's the biggest reward of it. So. And
then I'll just add to what you said, and that's one thing I always respected about you, is you had the spirit of a father, and wanting the best for even the multiplication of your leadership. You see people from everywhere and in between. Your ability to just create leaders, and by creating those leaders, you don't take away from their identity at all. You don't really clone yourself. You, just like the book says, you take people from where they are to where God wants them to be, and always keeping your ear towards heaven and pushing them in the direction that God will have them to go. And I just remember this like yesterday, when we got our minister's license under you, and then you prayed for every person. You prayed for every person on what God was directing them to do, and then you started to invest in them in that way. Just like I have 3 children, all like night and day.
Yeah.
And you gotta identify what God wants to do in their life and start to mold and push them in that direction. And I feel like that's what you did spiritually with all of us. Not everybody would become a pastor. Some were more missionary. Some were entrepreneurs. But even in that, they are still doing ministry in the marketplace. So it's just amazing to see that you always had the spirit of a father of wanting them to do what God has called them to do. So I just wanted to add that to it. And then another question that I had in here was, how would you say that a leader who has been given a vision from God, and we all know that it's really God's vision, it's not really our vision, it's God's vision.
Yeah.
But how would a emerging leader steward that vision? Because what I'm experiencing, what I'm noticing or observing is a lot of leaders give up too quick,
Mm-hmm.
or one thing doesn't work and then the whole thing is just kind of thrown away. But how do leaders steward vision and steward leadership? What are your thoughts?
So when you talk about stewarding vision, one of the first things is to be clear, to stay clear with your vision.
Right.
Because what happens is you oftentimes attract people into that vision, and anybody you attract is going to have a vision of your vision. So that's really key. The key point that a lot of times we don't think about. Everyone has a vision of your vision. Just like when you speak and when you talk, even right now, people who will watch this, they're going to hear what I'm saying. They're going to hear what they think I'm saying, and they're going to hear what somebody else is saying that I'm saying. Right? So the vision is the same way. They come into the vision and they have a vision of your vision. So the tendency is, and sometimes it's subconscious, they don't even realize they're doing it, or it's unconscious, they don't realize they're doing it, is that they'll begin to speak into your vision what is not in alignment with your vision.
Uh-huh.
So you have to be totally clear with what your vision is, so that if, not every church is called to have food banks. It's
right.
a great idea. It's a great thing. It's a great service to humanity, to the community. But some churches are more missional than other churches. So some churches may be, I say missional, globally missional.
Right.
And so the idea of let's have a food bank. Let's do it. If that's not what you're called to do within your vision, then you are mismanaging your vision. Mm-hmm. And so your vision will become something that is not designed to be. That thing is great. I love it. It's a wonderful thing, but it doesn't fit into our vision that we have. And so when you talk about stewarding the vision, you have to be totally clear on that vision so that you can steward it properly. And the other thing is to, this may go into another question that we have, but another thing is to go into your own personal development. Because if you are not being built up, then you're not going to be able to manage that vision, steward that vision properly, because you're depleted. So right. Then what happens a lot of times when we give up at the point of our depletion. We don't give up at the highest point. We don't give up when we're full. We give up when we have emptied out and we're not getting restored. So anytime you're not being poured into consistently, you're going to risk the loss of your full vision being manifested in the earth.
Well, yeah, I mean, man, that says a lot, because if you're depleted, you begin to settle and sacrifice things that should never be sacrificed to begin with, because you're depleted. And trust me, I'm learning more and more in that area as well, which did lead to one of the other questions. So you're what I call a high capacity leader. People may look at all what you're doing and the full scope of what you're doing or what they think you're doing and say, man, how is he so productive with the same 24 hours that everybody else has? And then again, you have your family, you have children, young children, you have children in college, you have your businesses, you have to be a good husband, you have all that. So how do you manage your personal life, taking care of yourself, taking care of family, taking care of business, and at the same time finding time to lead others and to build, not just manage, but to build more fully what God has shown you?
Yeah, that starts with the word boundaries. So you gotta have boundaries. And so, there are certain things that people would require of me that I don't require of myself, because I have boundaries. So, as a pastor, and this is tough. This is a tough one for some people oftentimes, but as a pastor, I may not show up to your graduation all the time, or your birthday parties or things like that. I may not be able to do that. And the reason is because, like you said, I've got family. and I'm on call, ministry wise, I'm on call 24 hours a day.
Right.
So when I do have those moments that are free, I have to steward those moments, going back to that, where I have to steward that time well, because the last thing that I want to do is to be a public success, but a failure at home. So having those moments when I can spend quality time with my wife, quality time with my kids, that's important. One thing Bishop McIntosh, who's a mentor of mine and my pastor, he taught me one time. He said, it's not always about the quantity of time that you spend. It is about that quality of time. So when you're there, you're present.
Right.
So, when I'm with my kids, I got to be present. When I'm with my wife, I have to be present and not trying to minister to everybody. I got to minister to my kids. I got to minister to my wife. That's what's important in that moment. And then knowing, again, when it comes down to business, if I'm working on business, I'm present working on my business, building the business out. When it comes to church, I'm present working with the church and doing my thing for the church. So again, it just comes down to those boundaries. It comes down to not just moving to every urgent need of
right.
people. If somebody calls and you just jump up and go. Now you spent 3 hours on something that you couldn't fix anyway, right? And so you got to learn how to do that. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. When I discovered that, it made me protect my time a whole lot more. In other words, I would rather have more time than have more money. You know what I'm saying? If someone doesn't believe that, I can help you believe it. I can tell you today, I'm going to give you $1 million. If you come to my house, I got $1 million for you. And you'll be excited about that. And once I give you that $1 million check, then I'm going to say, but tomorrow you're going to die if you take it. How many people are going to give that check back?
Right, everybody.
Because time is infinitely more valuable than money, right? And so when you discover that, you set boundaries in place to protect your time, because it's the most valuable asset that you have. And so you can't waste time on things. I have to set these boundaries so that I can spend as much time, quality time, with my family as possible, as much quality time with my ministry as possible, as much quality time on my overall purpose as possible, so that I don't find myself, looking back 4 or 5 years, looking at all the time I wasted running to everything else that wasn't even in alignment with who I am. So.
And man, that's one thing me and Evelyn struggled huge on, because we're wired that way. We're servants. We're missional. So it's like, and I finally had to say, like, we have to stop allowing people to intrude on our time. Especially when we're together. And for one, in this current season, don't have a lot of it to begin with. So
right.
we really have to protect it when it comes to career. When I'm home, I shut that off. I have a phone that they call all the time, but when it hits a certain time, I'm with my family. And I think they understand that now. They try to test the waters every once in a while, but that's something we really have to learn, is to set boundaries, and something that we're continuing to learn. And it becomes more important now, because we're trying to get to another dimension, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we were able to do, in our last season, we're not able to do anymore. When we had more time, when we didn't have more pressing things to do, and I don't mean to be rude by saying that, but we're going somewhere. And then when I explained it to Evelyn and some others, I said, if you're going somewhere, you can't get off at every exit somebody wants you to get off at.
Right, right. Exactly.
You waste a lot of time, you waste a lot of energy. And then I heard somebody say, I think it was a quote, but they said something to the effect, we spend 8 days making somebody else's dream come true. And then sometimes we come home too tired to even work on our own at all. Yeah. So I really respect what you said, the boundaries. And I'm learning more and more every day, getting more and more delivered from it. But I don't know if I'm 100% delivered yet.
It's hard. It's hard when you are a servant leader. It's hard when you love people, when you want to be there for people. You want to make people happy and feel, make sure they're good. It's hard, but you just got to remember that, again, if I'm depleted, I really can't give back to you at the level that I can. If my marriage is jacked up, it's hard for me to really pour into you when I'm thinking about that. If my kids, if I don't have a relationship with them, it's really hard for me when we do have those moments to really pour out like I need to. So you got to keep that in mind. If I'm giving out to everybody else, that's a piece of you that you're losing. That's a piece of your time that you're losing. And so you have to be strategic in how you do that and how you give to people so that you can be at 100% capacity when those times come, when we have our one-on-ones, when I come out and I come to pour into you. I'm at 100% capacity when I'm doing that. So that's why it's important.
Yeah, and then I'll add to one more thing that you said, just being at 100%. I can just be just a completely transparent moment. I can remember a time not too long ago where the thing that you love becomes the thing that you hate because you're depleted. It's like you love people, but man, my phone is ringing again. Like oh man, it starts to frustrate you more than it used to fuel you. I don't know if that makes sense, but the thing that you love, you have a passion for, you begin to burn out. So learning to take those vacations, even if you don't go anywhere fancy, learning to pause and take the Sabbath, really a Sabbath, not just like rest and refresh and do something I like. I'm not a martial artist like yourself, but I like to watch UFC and sports and things like that. Doing something that you love that has no missional agenda attached to it. So with that said, I'll bring up I think this is the last one. Make sure. Okay. So now the floor is pretty much open to you. You've been saying some real good stuff. Pretty much I'm just going to ask and just let you take it where you want to take it. That says, what advice would you give emerging leaders of the next generation? What advice, suggestions, whatever you have for the next generation of leaders?
Yeah. So I would say, number one, submit. We're in a generation now that everything is accessible right on the internet. Google, you can Google anything. You can YouTube anything. But I would say submit to people who have been there. Right. As sometimes, as emerging leaders, we want to discount and diss literally the former. But the former is important, and you need to submit that. Submit what you don't know to people who know. Because if not, you can mess up. I was my shower had jacked up in my bathroom, and so I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna bring a plumber in here, hire nobody to do this. I'm gonna look on YouTube and figure this out. And so I got on YouTube and I watched the guy go into the wall and twist the pipes and put the thing back on there and do all that stuff. So I was like, cool, got it. Went and bought some tools. I'm good. I went in there and I'm twisting and busted that pipe, and that water just shot out all through my bathroom, and it was just bad. And so I called my friend Pastor Mark Wallace, because he's a plumber. I said, I showed him a picture of it. I said, Mark, how bad is this? He said, that's real bad. It's real bad. He's like, why didn't you call me? And so he came over and fixed it all up. My point in this is that sometimes as emerging leaders, we feel like, you know what? I can do all of this myself. I can Google it, I can YouTube it, and I can just do it and go for it. And then we start twisting stuff. And next thing you know, we bust a pipe. Right. And we got this big old mess now, simply because there was no submitting to someone who knew and who had already been there, that could show you exactly, not just from you watching it, but can actually instruct you on what needs to be done next. And that's really important as emerging leaders. The other thing as emerging leaders would be along the same lines, but to always be in a posture of learning, And what I mean by that is, you have to be, whether it's formal education, which I know you're in school doing the formal education, that's powerful, that's important, or self-education, but you have to be in this posture of being educated, which means that sometimes true education is going to come when you invest in that education. So, we call it in the industry, we call it freemiums. Most people are so caught up on the freemiums that you really don't get what you need from what you don't pay for. The more you pay, the more you pay attention. So there are times that you have to just posture yourself to be a student, to be a constant student. Again, it almost ties in the lines of submission, but this is now, I just saying, just be a student. One of the things that I'm constantly doing is I'm breaking away to go sit in a class on public speaking. And I'll go to what's called the Master Storyteller Academy, and I'll sit for 3 days and let someone instruct me on public speaking. Or I'll go to presentation power and let someone instruct me on public speaking. So I can constantly be a student, constantly learning, constantly going to the next level, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's ministry, doesn't matter what it is. You got to be in a place of being a continual student. A disciple is a continual learner, someone who has decided, I will be a continual learner, and I will go wherever you lead. So I'm a continual learner and will go wherever you lead. That's what a disciple is. And so you've got to remain a disciple, remain a student. Don't ever get to the point as a leader that you think you figured it out. Because again, we talked about the seascape. Once you think you figured it out, something's going to happen. Then you're going to realize you haven't figured it out. So those are two things that I highly suggest those who are coming up, the emerging leaders, just stay in that place. Because here's the thing, Jermaine, success is coming quickly now. People are becoming successful overnight. People are nobody, in terms of not known, let me say it that way. People are not known, today, and then they'll drop a video on Facebook and it'll go viral and everybody knows your name tomorrow. Like, that's how quick things move. That's how quick things shift. But the problem is with that, when that video goes from 10 to 10 million overnight, and you don't have the leadership capacity to handle it, it can crush you. It can destroy you. It can mess you all up. So being in that posture of submission, being in that posture of continual student is so huge. And I think when I look at my friend Michael Todd, look at Michael Todd. What's great and what he has been able to do great is go from, no one knowing his name to everybody knowing his name, over 1 million followers on Instagram. And what people don't know, what's great about him is he's submitted. He submitted to Bishop McIntosh, submitted to the guy out of Dallas. He submitted to them. He submitted to people. He submitted to a team. And then he's a constant learner. So he's learning from the Stephen Furticks and being discipled and pushed by them. And that's how he's able to sustain this massive growth in such a short amount of time. But a lot of people don't do that. And so a lot of people hit a 10 million view thing and think, oh, I've arrived. Here I am. Everybody needs to listen to me. I got it. It's tragic when that happens.
It is. And I think a lot of that, like you spoke to a lot of the posture of the generation now, is that the instantaneous and the, you can put out a TikTok and you overnight sensation. So
yeah.
but what I think that's caused in a lot of us, and I'll put myself in there, that our generation and Generation Y or Z or whatever is under me, that impatience, it reminds me of like when a child is ready to leave the house and they do it prematurely. They think they're ready to go. Kind of like the plumbing scenario that you gave. But when they get out there, it was a little more heavier than they thought it would be. So just remaining in that posture of a submission and being mentored and being coached and everything is vital in this scenario. I mean, in the season and beyond, even if you're an emerging leader and you become a leader, like you said, always having somebody above you that can speak to what you don't know, that you can call and say, hey, I've never been here before. What did you do? How did you experience this? And then where do you go from here? Not saying that every situation will be the same for everybody, but you can glean a credible amount from somebody that's been in that situation before. So, and that's something that even I'm learning as well in this season that we're in. But that leads to a segue again. I see Go Next Global on your shirt, and we just talked about leadership. We just talked about submission. We just talked about that. Tell everybody about your company and what it's for.
Yeah, again, Go Next Global is about really pouring into teams, leadership groups and teams, and from corporate organizations to church organizations. So my passion and mission, again, is to help even within your groups, whether you're a business, or whether you're a church, helping your people really discover their identity within the vision that you have, so that they can become more productive, and on a larger scale, you become more progressive, more productive, and more profitable. I just left North Carolina, where I went and taught a plumbing company out in North Carolina, and we sat for 2 full days, and we went through purpose, we went through identity, we went through leadership, we went all the way even down to sales training, and to really understanding how you being confident in who you are increases even sales. So we went through all of that, and so that's what the company's about. I do keynote speaking, as well as seminar training, and as well as there'll be webinars that's coming out. A book's coming out here probably in about 30 days is what I'm looking for. The book to be ready to be published, or to actually ready to be marketed anyway, in about 30 days. So Go Next is the name of the book. And so Go Next, going from where you are to where God has created you to be in relationships, business, and family. And so that's coming out. So I'm excited about that. I've been working on it for actually a few years now, working on the material for that book. And so I think it's going to be something that's going to be a game changer for a lot of people. I have a website, gonextglobal.com. You can go to that website. And right now what I'm doing is I'm connecting people to my Facebook group. It's a Go Next Global Facebook group where I do trainings. I come on and I do trainings on there, free training, as a matter of fact, on there. And then, then I have some other things that you could become a part of that would require an investment. But it's all about just training leaders to really identify who they're created to be, and not just leaders who understand, who want followers. This is leaders who want to create more leaders, because there's a leadership deficit in the world right now, and we gotta fix that.
I think this pandemic has really put a light on leaders who just want followers instead of leaders who want transformation and impact. So
right, exactly.
Set a mouthful right there. But I definitely, I love you for your leadership in the pivotal moment of my life, which pretty much helped me get to where I was, to where God wants me to be. Do I feel like I've arrived yet? Not 100%, but I thank you for your investment in my life.